Okay, today we're going to be talking about Concept 30, fatigue, which is in your concept book. So the book describes fatigue as a subjective lack of physical and/or mental energy that is perceived by the individual or caregiver to interfere with usual and desired activities. Fatigue has both physical and psychological dimensions. The scope of fatigue is presented on a continuum of having vitality and energy with no fatigue at one end to a feeling of exhaustion at the other end. So you can have no fatigue, moderate fatigue, or exhaustion. A continuum is a useful representation of this symptom because it is not fixed and is highly variable. The scope considers two factors, the severity and frequency of symptoms. The degree or severity of fatigue experience varies in all individuals in part due to the underlying health status, but also based on how the symptoms are interpreted and expressed. According to Markowitz and Rabo, they suggest three defining characteristics. 1. A perception of generalized weakness resulting in inability to initiate certain activities. 2. Easy fatigability and the reduced capacity to maintain performance. And 3. Mental fatigue resulting in impaired concentration and loss of memory and emotional stability. So the normal physiological process. Fatigue can be considered an expected symptom experienced by healthy individuals. In healthy individuals, fatigue is relieved by physical and/or cognitive rest. They also have the mental and physical strength to initiate and sustain actions to take care of life needs. When fatigue is persistent and impairs normal life functioning, it is considered a health problem. For fatigue to be recognized as a significant health problem, it needs to be a prominent symptom for at least 2 consecutive weeks. So in your learning group, discuss and differentiate the cause of the 3 types classifications of fatigue. So go ahead and take about 10 minutes in your learning groups to discuss the 3 different types: physiological fatigue, secondary fatigue, and unknown. It's on the bottom of page 293 and the top of page 294. So go ahead and do that. Take about 10 minutes and we'll come back to this. So the categories of fatigue can either be temporary or chronic. And chronic is lasting longer than 6 months. On box 30 and 1, page 295, it says, and you need to know this, the individual has severe chronic fatigue for 6 or more consecutive months. And also on number 3, it says the individual concurrently has 4 or more of the following 8 symptoms: post-exertion malaise, lasting more than 24 hours, unrefreshing sleep, significant impairment of short-term memory or concentration, muscle pain, multi-joint pain without swelling or redness, headaches of a new type, pattern, or severity, tender cervical or axillary lymph nodes, frequent or recurring sore throat. Theoretical links. There are many models or theories to explain what happens within the body to cause fatigue, but no single theory completely explains this multidimensional concept. The 3 leading theories are waste product accumulation, which some forms of fatigue result from the accumulation of waste products within the body. An example of that would be your patient with end-stage renal disease experiences extreme fatigue and has difficulty concentrating on tasks of daily living. Remember, with the kidneys are what excrete waste products out of our body. If they're at end-stage renal disease, their kidneys are no longer functioning, so those waste products are not being excreted, they're accumulating in the body, and this causes extreme fatigue. Insufficient supply of substances. This is fatigue that can result from insufficient supply of necessary substances such as carbs, fat, protein, ATP, and oxygen. An example of that would be a patient with anemia, which has decreased oxygen carrying capacity resulting in reduced oxygenation to tissues, so that causes fatigue as well. And then the inflammatory process, which causes central nervous system mediated fatigue. The hypothalamus and basal ganglia of the brain are involved, and this process involves a complex interaction of neurotransmitters and immune factors. So we just discussed that, so you don't need to discuss that in your 3 learning models. You don't need to discuss the 3 learning models in your group. So what are the consequences of commonly occurring physiological fatigue? One is significant changes in a person's life that results in the loss of a job, loss of relationships, and inability to care for oneself that can lead to significant psychological consequences, particularly depression. Though it doesn't lead to death, but mortality from suicide was higher in patients with chronic idiopathic fatigue than the general population. And there's a poor prognosis for those who are older, have a chronic illness, a comorbid psychiatric disorder, or believe that physical causes are responsible for the fatigue. So recognize the risk factors for fatigue across various populations. So what population do you think is at the greatest risk? Older adults are. The elderly are at greatest risk due to physiological changes associated with aging. Women are more likely to experience fatigue. Women have a greater risk than men to develop chronic fatigue syndrome. 75% of patients with chronic fatigue syndrome are female. Individual risk factors, the underlying conditions can be like anemia, depression, multiple sclerosis, CHF, COPD, things like that. Treatment-related factors, medications such as beta blockers, sedatives, hypnotics, antidepressants, muscle relaxers, cancer drugs. Nutritional status would be protein, calorie malnutrition. And then lifestyle choices are exercising excessively, consuming a poor diet, excessive alcohol intake, not sleeping, working excessively. In your learning group, discuss the individual risk factors for fatigue. Identify which are modifiable. So take about 5 minutes in your learning groups and discuss which ones are modifiable, which risk factors are modifiable, and then we'll come back to this. Okay, so which ones do you think are modifiable? Obviously, it would be the lifestyle choices, eating a better diet, not over exercising, not oversleeping, but getting enough sleep, not working. You could stop working as much, stuff like that. Those are all modifiable things. Also, you could stop consuming alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, things like that that are going to cause you to be fatigued, right? So assessment. Fatigue is a subjective experience. Men and women describe it differently. So you're going to get their perspective of how they're experiencing the fatigue. What's their description of the fatigue? So that would be the personal description of fatigue. Onset and course. Ask if fatigue occurred suddenly or it appeared more gradually. The duration and daily pattern. Ask the patient about the length of time he or she has experienced the fatigue. And factors that alleviate or exacerbate. Find out what makes the fatigue worse or better. And this will help you tailor the patient-centered interventions more. The impact on daily life. Assess how it has impacted the patient's activities of daily living, their ability to work, socialize, participate in activities, and their libido. In the physical examination, inspection, look at their general appearance, their gait. Do they have a weak gait? Is their muscle appearance? What does it look like? Is there muscle atrophy? Their strength against resistance. Check their deep tendon reflexes. What about palpation? You're going to palpate the thyroid nodules, the lymph nodes, see if there's a goiter, which would be hypothyroidism, which would cause fatigue as well. You can also test further for cancer or thyroid disease. Auscultate the heart and lungs for any underlying conditions, such as a patient with CHF is going to have fatigue because of the heart's not functioning right, the fluid's backing up into the lungs, and that's going to cause them fatigue as well. Or even like COPD, emphysema, things like that are going to cause fatigue as well. There are no specific diagnostic markers for fatigue, but Table 31 on page 296 has self-report instruments, tools that you can use to screen for fatigue. Primary prevention. Obviously, you want to promote good nutrition, exercise, getting adequate sleep, managing stress, and vitamin supplements. Nurses can advocate for patients and families with fatigue risk so they can obtain resources needed to prevent fatigue. Patient teaching for individuals with risk factors so they take measures to avoid fatigue. Primary prevention, there is no wide screening effort in regards to fatigue, but nurses can screen patients using a fatigue screening tool. Collaborative interventions. Manage physiological fatigue by managing poor lifestyle choices and disease. Manage secondary fatigue to treat underlying condition and reduce fatigue. So for exercise and rest therapy, you want to encourage them to get an adequate amount of sleep and discourage oversleeping. Make sure they're getting enough hours of sleep at night, eating well-balanced meals, try to stay away from fatty food, things like that. Lots of carbs, things that are going to make you really give you lots of energy, but then make you crash. Stress management, pharmacological treatment, if it's the thyroid, hypothyroidism, then you want them to take Synthroid, make sure they take it, and they, are following up with their doctor to make sure it's working. They're at the therapeutic range. Antidepressants, a lot of times when people are depressed, they will have fatigue. And, if they get on some antidepressants, that could help with the fatigue. Psychological care. Validate with patients that fatigue is a genuine problem and it exists as they say it does. Establish a therapeutic relationship between patient and the healthcare team. It's important for individuals to balance nutrition, sleep, stress, and psychological coping skills. You also want to teach your anemia patient about taking iron supplements. And cognitive behavioral therapy has been beneficial in treatment. So in your learning group, discuss these interrelated concepts from the context of symptom management and minimizing complications. So for about 10 minutes, get into your learning groups and discuss mood and affect, nutrition, and pain, and just discuss how these interrelated concepts from the context of symptom management and minimizing complications. And this is all for the rest of this lecture. Hope you enjoyed it.